Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Kellen here with Droid Life. So our Moto X Pure Edition review is done. You guys have hopefully read that. But because we know a number of you are probably going to pick this device up, we want to make sure those of you who do are getting the most out of it. And so this video, we're going to walk through a whole bunch of tips and tricks to hopefully help get you there. And so this is one of those series we've been doing for years now with most of the flagship phones, and this just makes sense to do it again here. So with that in mind, I think where we want to start first with this phone is in the Moto suite of software. Now, if I back up for a minute, as you all know, Motorola basically puts stock Android on its phones. And then on top of stock Android, to sort of add to it in a very subtle way, they introduced this Moto suite of software. And so this Moto suite of software is kind of where you get the most bang for your buck as long as you're using it with this phone. So we're going to start there. So to access the Moto suite of software, go into your app drawer and scroll down until you see this colorful Moto app. So if we tap on that, you'll see it says Hello Kellen. It knows my name. And if we tap up here in this section, this brings us into everything that the Moto app can do. So you have Moto Assist, Actions, Voice, and Display. So we'll just start at Assist. And Assist basically allows your phone to automate some tasks for you, depending on situation, location, time. So you'll see up top, I have mine set for sleeping. And so it knows that at 11:50 p.m. until 6 a.m., it probably shouldn't interrupt me. And so it goes silent, and it'll only allow priority notifications to come through, which could be a phone call from my mom or something like that, maybe an emergency. So sleeping, definitely something you should consider. There's some other options in here as well, though. You could add places. So your home, work, or even a custom spot. And essentially what you could do is say, well, when I'm at work, I want you to be silent, and it could do that. Or when I'm at home, I want you to read all of my notifications out loud. You could do that as well. And then finally, if you select activity, there's three options. One is sleeping, which we talked about. Then you also have driving or meeting. So driving could be while you're driving, you want your phone to keep quiet, or maybe you want it to talk to you out loud, or maybe you just always want to play music every time you are driving. And so it senses the fact that you're moving, and then we'll start adding on some of that stuff. And then the other one, which I just skipped by, is in a meeting. So let's say you're in a meeting, you want your phone to keep quiet all the time, or you even want to have an auto reply set up. So it checks your calendar and things like that. Very, very handy. Moto Assist is definitely one of those things I would suggest you guys take a look at and set up. So if we back out, let's go into Actions. So Actions, these are things you can do with your phone or around your phone that can sort of enhance your experience. So the first one is Approach for Moto Display. So I'll get into Moto Display in a second, but basically when the phone's laying on the desk, you can just sort of wave your hand over it. It'll show you the time and notifications. It's very handy. Chop twice for flashlight. So Motorola introduced this action, I believe it was last year. Basically, you just chop twice quickly, and then it turns the flashlight on in the back there. So you can see I now have a flashlight. Just chop again, and that will turn it back off. Lift for Moto Voice. So this is actually a new feature. And basically, if you start with your phone down and lift it up to your head as if you were going to talk on it, and then ask it Moto Voice commands, and we'll talk more about Moto Voice in a second, it'll then say them back to you discreetly through the earpiece instead of out loud via speakerphone like it normally does. Handy little feature there. And then finally, the last one is Twist for quick capture. And this has been around for a couple of years. Basically, you just do a couple of twists with your wrist and it launches the camera. One of the best ways to launch your camera on any phone. So those are actions, definitely almost all worth using there. So Moto Voice is voice control over your phone. It's been here for a couple of years as well. It just seems to get better. And basically you can customize a launch phrase. Like you could say, hey, Peanuts over here, and that could activate your phone. I mean, you can basically customize it to whatever. Mine is okay, Moto X. And I kept it simple like that. You can see there on purpose just for videos and things like this. And there's a whole bunch of things you can do with Moto Voice. Like you could ask for the weather. You could check out what's going on today. You could have it text someone. You could have it take a selfie even. So there's a whole bunch of things you can actually do with Moto Voice. And we'll look at a list of those commands in a second. And then finally down here is Moto Display, probably what I would consider to be the best smartphone feature I've seen introduced in a long, long, long time. And essentially what it does when the phone is sitting at an asleep or locked state, the lock screen will actually show you little bits of information. That could be the time or notifications that have arrived. And you can also interact with those. It's amazing, and it's one of those things that once you've used it, it's kind of hard to use another phone that doesn't have it. So that is your Moto Hub. Again, you just kind of want to go in and set all of that stuff up to really start getting the most out of your phone. So with that in mind, let's dive in a little bit deeper in a couple of these. So Moto Voice for one. So if I say, okay, Moto X, what's up?
Good afternoon, Kellen. The time is 12:11 p.m.
So it tells me the time, and then it'll actually start going through notifications if you have those. So it's just kind of a quick way to get a briefing on your phone if you've maybe been away from it. You could also say, okay, Moto X, what's the weather like?
It's 59 degrees and partly cloudy in Portland.
So you've got that as well. You could say, okay, Moto X. And I'm just going to pop this up now, and I'm going to tap on more down here just so you can see. So here's a list of the commands. These are all things you can do with your voice. You could say, actually, this is a pretty good one. You could say, you know, your command like, okay, Moto X, good night. And hopefully it doesn't actually do that. But if you say something like good night, it then knows to kind of go into sleep mode. And you could wake it up in the next morning by saying your launch phrase and then good morning, and it will come out of that. It's very, very handy. You can set reminders for things, post to Facebook, open your calendar, play specific albums or artists on YouTube even, set an alarm, call people, ask what song is playing, take a photo, selfies, all of that stuff. It's actually a pretty intense list of stuff. So that's Moto Voice. And once you set up that launch phrase, you can just kind of start doing all of that, which is very awesome. All right, so the next thing I'd like to look at then would be Moto Display. So Moto Display, well, you can see it just popped up there, but it allows you to briefly pull up the time without ever touching it. And then if you have notifications, which I'll try to show you how that works right now. If you have notifications or something, they will also appear on the screen and sort of just pop up and let you know that something is there. So I just sent myself a message, and now I can tap and look. You can see I can swipe down to unlock, or I can swipe up and check out the message that I just sent. And so I have the time and I have notifications. And it's just one of the handiest ways to interact with your phone. And now they're actually allowing you to do 1, 2, 3 in a row, and you can interact with 3 of them. So Moto Display, one of the best things you'll see in a phone, on any phone, I should say. The other thing was quick capture. I showed you that. You can basically just launch the camera that quickly and then tap and take a picture. So it's one of the fastest ways to take a picture. All right, so those are basically your Moto suite. Now, after that, you kind of just start getting into stock Android tips and tricks. So one of those things I want to just show you some basics of is the Google Now launcher. So this phone launches with the Google Now launcher rather than some proprietary thing that Motorola tried to build. And so you've got some cool things you can do here. One, you can swipe over here to the left, and that gets you into Google Now. So Google Now, obviously, is something you want to use. If you want to add home screens and things like that, you just long press, and then you can jump in and add widgets, or you can change wallpapers and jump into some other settings and things like that. You guys know how to use the Google Now launcher, but that's essentially the basics of it. One thing, in a recent update, they actually changed the Google Now launcher to a vertically scrolling app drawer, which I love, by the way. But if you want to jump through apps, you can actually grab the scroll bar over here and jump between letters in case you have like a couple hundred apps or something like that. You can also tap up here and search for them. So I could search for Chrome, and you can see Chrome comes up. Another quick tip, if you just long press on the app drawer, it actually jumps right into search in case you wanted to search for Chrome. So just a quicker way there of using that. Just some other just basic Android stuff. Obviously, pull down once for notifications. You pull down twice. That gets you into your sort of settings. Quick toggles. 2-finger swipe still pulls it right down into those quick toggles for those that haven't seen that before. Obviously, notifications are interactive, and you can pull and expand and all of that good stuff as well. So that hasn't really changed, but it's still very cool. If we jump into settings, though, we'll just show you a couple of things in here that might be new to some of you. So we'll scroll down here to display. So display, the Moto 360 uses an adaptive brightness, which basically allows you to sort of set brightness where you like it, and then it adapts to your situation from there on. And you can adjust that pretty quickly from in here. But so that's sort of the basic idea behind adaptive display. One thing I did want to point out, though, is this phone uses an LCD display, which maybe doesn't quite have that punch that you guys are used to if you use an AMOLED display. And so there's actually a color mode in here. One is for normal, and one is for vibrant. And so you can see on the flower the subtle tweaks there. It's much more apparent in real life. But I've left mine on vibrant because I like a little bit of extra color there. If we scroll down to attentive display, this is something that doesn't get a lot of looks. And I actually turned it off just because I'm a battery weirdo, and I have a feeling that this could drain battery a little bit. Basically, it's called attentive display, and it's stay on while I'm looking at it. So let's say you're looking at your phone, and maybe you're just reading, say, an article or something, so you're not necessarily interacting with it. You don't want your display to go to sleep. If you have attentive display turned on, it should be recognizing that you're looking at it, and then it won't turn off. So it's kind of a handy little feature there. If we jump back here, we'll go back twice. Sound and notification. They did include in this audio effects section here, full-on equalizer with presets for bass and treble and vocalizer and things like that. And this is for wired, or if you're connected, or if you want to use the speaker. So you actually have some presets and you can control some audio effects with this phone, which is something sort of that we don't necessarily see all that often anymore in phones. So back out of there, storage is something to keep in mind. Remember, this phone does allow you to add an SD card slot. So it comes in 16, 32, or 64 gig storage options, but you could potentially go with the 16 gig model option, and then inside the SIM slot here, you actually could throw in an SD card up to 128 gigs. So you kind of have a lot of storage you can use here. And in storage, you can see I have an SD card slot in there, 128 gig, and you can see it available there. So you can store things to it, all of that good stuff. So just something to keep in mind there. Another thing I want to show you in security, and this isn't necessarily new, but it's a good reminder for those that haven't seen it in a while. If you have a pattern pin or a password set up on here, you can use something called Smart Lock. And so I use this all of the time now because Android Pay now requires you to have a secure lock if you want to use Android Pay. And so I've set these up. So Smart Lock is essentially a way to keep a lock screen on your phone, but then should you get separated from it, it remains locked. But while it's with you, those smart locks allow it to remain unlocked, if that makes sense. So an example would be, I have a lock screen. You just saw me put in my password or my pattern there. If I'm attached to a Moto 360, which you can see up top there, and the Moto 360 is on and paired to my phone, I no longer have to enter that password. I can just swipe in and unlock. It works with places as well. So I can set up while I'm at home and it knows my location. It never asks me to enter that pattern. It's pretty awesome, actually. And you can do it with your face as well and your voice. If it's here, thinks it notices your voice all of the time, or using OK Google, I should say, it will actually unlock. And then on-body detection is something Google's kind of testing, where if it thinks you're carrying your phone and it's on your body or in your purse or something like that, it will remain unlocked. So Smart Lock is just something you guys should all be taking advantage of, especially now if you're using Android Pay, because this allows you to sort of not have to enter in a pattern or password or PIN all of the time. So the last thing, though, we do want to jump back into the camera and just walk through some of this stuff. So in the camera, well, I'm going to go over here and turn some of this stuff off. So out of the box, it works like this. It's just you put an object in front of it and tap it, and it focuses for you, and then you just tap the screen and it takes a picture. If you want a little bit more control, there's an option here for controlled focus and exposure, and so I can actually grab this and drag it to where I want to focus, and then it'll focus on that area, and then I can tap and take a picture with that in focus. It also gives you this option to adjust exposure, so you have a little more manual control. Now, there's not a lot of manual control with this camera. That's about the bulk of it, but this is how I've been shooting, just because I like to adjust my focus spot and then adjust exposure as well. Another thing to keep in mind here, there is a night mode. So this doesn't have optical image stabilization, but if you add on night mode, it tries to do some extra processing and things to make your indoor or darkened pictures look much better. If you jump into the video settings, you can see it does record in slow-mo 720p, and it also records in 4K now, so something to keep in mind. If you want to adjust the resolution on your photo, so I don't like shooting in widescreen, I like standard 4:3, so I actually switch that, but this is where you would toggle that. And if we keep scrolling around here, there's timers and there's a panorama mode here. You might, if you're using an SD card slot, you might want to switch this from phone to SD so that all your pictures are stored on your SD cards. And then down here is where you would actually enable or disable that sort of twisting feature I keep showing you. And so that's pretty much it, because otherwise this is a pretty stock Android phone, and you guys know how to use stock Android for the most part. So with that said, that's it. Those are your tips and tricks for the Moto X. If you guys have comments, questions, or want us to show you anything else with this phone, we can certainly do that. For now, though, we are Droid Life. Peace.